Welcome to bio class today, everyone. Good to see you. Glad you liked the Celtic music I was playing. Hope that you're feeling awake and ready to go today. So before I do anything else, I know you tend to remember things I tell you first. So I'm going to tell you very first. Next Thursday, which is the 19th, is going to be your test on what we're talking about these next few days. Cells and cell structures and cell theory, all of that is going to be in a test next Thursday. So it's already in your calendar, your Google Calendar, and you can access it on Blackboard, so you can see that too. And it's just like all the other tests. It's going to be multiple choice. It's going to be on eCart, and it's open notes. So it's going to be a really good idea for you to try to write down everything that you're going to need to know for this one, because a lot of this cells and cell parts and what those cell parts do is just memorization. And my goodness, if it's an open notes test, take advantage of it, right? So we're going to do a pear deck today that's going to get you started on this topic. And because we're in the middle of a pandemic, I couldn't resist putting some stuff on viruses in there. And we're going to talk about whether or not viruses are living or not, and what kind of structures they might have that are different from what a cell has. So you want to really pay attention, because if Mrs. Murdoch is thinking something is important, it's going to be on your test. So I'm going to share a pear deck with you now, but before I do that, I'm actually going to show you something I made for you to go with it. Just show you this. Okay. So if you go into your Blackboard right, and here I'll go into yours. This is first period, but yours is very similar. There we go. So if you go into classwork, your Unit 3 cells, there's just your placeholder. The unit test is on November 19th there. And then there is a optional, I do say optional, note sheet that goes with the pear deck you're about to see. Is there a question?
No.
Okay, so student notes for the pear deck, right? So this is optional. I just wrote it up quickly to go with the pear deck. If you wanted to write down the important parts of the pear deck today, this is a nice thing you could print out for yourself or just leave it on the screen. And if things go too fast and you don't get everything down, the pear deck is right here. So you can do it later and get whatever you missed later.
Oh,
so
the
don't
screen is black.
rush through writing notes. Okay, so it's right here. The pear deck we're about to do right here. The notes that go with it, if you want to take notes, are right here. So there's that. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start the pear deck. So I got to do that one. Okay.
Sorry, I was having an issue, Miss Murdoch. My computer was black, and now it's Ariana. We were just showing. Okay, yeah, I had to refresh my screen, Ariana.
Okay, here's our pear deck.
Yeah, she'll come back in a second. It was all black, and I look, and I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. Yeah,
I can see it now.
Okay, good.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, let's do it. So Mr. Bouchard, did I hear that you found a sibling of somebody you taught before? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Autumn from our class last year.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Maddie's older sister.
That is so nice. I love it when we make connections between students and their siblings. That's a really nice thing.
Autumn was such a hard worker. So much better than that Maddie girl. But don't tell Maddie I did that thing.
He's teasing you, Maddie. You know that. Right?
Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Which one is it?
Okay, here we go.
All right, I'm gonna set up that other thing like we talked about. Why won't it let me so stupid.
I know there's more than 11 of you there. Please join, okay? Very,
Yep,
very
man.
important. Join in that you participate. Please let us know if you're having trouble. We're here to help you.
Everybody is here, Miss Murdoch.
Mhm.
Yay. Now, I don't know why it won't let me.
What are you trying to do, bud?
I'm just trying to set that like we had talked about.
Okay.
I'll figure it out. It's just annoying.
All right, so we have 20 of you here who are students and 2 who are teachers. And right now, there's only 13 of you, so we really need you all to join. Very important.
What? I don't understand.
Mr. Bouchard, are you having a moment?
Oh, no, I figured out what I need to do.
Okay, Lena's having connection issues.
Yeah, Joe said that too.
Okay, all right.
There was that issue before he said some of his other ones. Can't find link. Okay, I'll put it right back in the chat. Don't worry. Here we go. Give me a second.
Yeah, Mr. Bouchard, be my because
YQHQP. There you go. I put it right in the chat. Sorry, my things were disabled when I was trying to. I had to re-sign in, and I was trying to fix something else. Miss Murdoch talking about. Pets' heads are falling off. Oh, good.
Good. That's good.
All right, we have 15 in. Not bad.
Better.
Not bad.
Yeah. Just needed to be patient. There we go. That's good.
All right. Oh, Ariana, so good. Already in. I'm Ariana. I'm already in. See what we did there? Got a lot of energy too, Ariana.
That's good. That's good. Today's topics are going to be relevant and interesting for you. So hopefully you'll have lots of good questions.
I would go, Miss Murdoch, just because.
Ready? All right, let's go. You can still join, so we're just
I have
going
it in the chat.
All right, so this is our first pair deck on cells and the cell theory. And the first thing I want to talk about is characteristics of life. Now, you've probably looked at these in the 7th grade. It may have been a while ago. I want you to type into your question, into your answer boxes, as many things that make something alive as you can remember. So remember that living things don't just include koala bears and humans. Living things include things like mushrooms and paramecia, right? And amoeba, things that are only made of single cells, right? So what are the characteristics that all of these have in common?
What do we put? What do we put? How are we doing?
Okay, I'm going to take a look at what you're saying. As cells. Oh, is water and food? No, it's sort of. It's related to. Good. Oh, and niche, you're thinking about biology. That's quite advanced. Don't think that's a requirement to be alive, though. Eating food is also, yeah. That's pretty good. You're thinking. I like it that you're thinking. Has at least one cell. Very good. Needs food. That is true. Yes. We call it something else. Reproduce. That's a good one. Yes. Okay. So breathe is not the right word, but it's the right idea. Have cells? Yes, definitely. Reproduction, growth. Not sure about traits. You need to say a different word other than traits. These are good, though. Cellular structure. That's good. You guys are thinking. Love that you're thinking. Evolution, somebody said it. Awesome. Yes.
Metabolism.
That's good. They reproduce, yes. As DNA, yes. Very good. Able to grow, can produce, can excrete. Oh, these are really good. And I think you meant to have cells. That's good. Okay. At least one cell. Reproduction, I think you meant. DNA, yes. Now, not all cells have a nucleus. Be careful with that.
Oh, yeah.
There are some living cells that don't have a nucleus.
Evolves. Nice.
That evolves, made of cells. You guys are so awesome. Okay.
I wonder if they did your Ed puzzle, Miss Murdoch. Maybe some have already done your Ed puzzle.
I think so, definitely. Yes. Here's the real list. Here it is. So some of you said made of cells. That was very good. And reproduce and DNA, very good. Some of you said breathe, though, and that isn't quite correct. More what you should have said was that metabolizes food and creates waste is really the better way of saying that. Meaning that you can break down food and create waste, which is part of something called respiration, which is included in metabolism. Some of you said evolves. You guys are on top of this. I'm not worried. But if you need this list to be up for a couple more minutes, if you're writing it down, I can do that. Let me know, Mr. Bouchard, what I should do.
Oh, okay. A bunch of them did it yesterday. The Ed puzzles. So.
And if you did, and then you're on top of this part of it. But now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how that relates to viruses, which was not in that Ed puzzle. Is it okay if I go? Are you guys ready for me to go?
Nobody said anything otherwise.
All right. Okay, let's do a little question test then. Which of these is not a characteristic of life? Look at the list. See what you think doesn't belong there.
Ooh.
The characteristics of life have a certain language, right? Thinking. Let's see how you're doing here.
13 responses, not bad. You know, we're getting a lot more responses out of you guys. I like it.
Yep. You guys are a lot more participatory than some of our other classes. I like that a lot. Okay. Yes, very good. Movement is not really a good way to describe what all living things do, right? Not when you have a mushroom that you know is not able to move, but is certainly alive, right? So it has to be all of the characteristics of living things. You have to be able to apply them to a single-celled amoeba, to a mushroom, which is sessile and doesn't move, and to an animal. Lots of people think about animals when they think about characteristics of life, and then they say things that yes, animals can do, but a mushroom can't do, or a paramecium can't do. And the entire list has to be written so that every single thing that is alive, from a single cell to the koala bear, has those abilities. Okay, so that's why movement is really not correct. Responding to the environment is better. And sometimes in response to the environment, you can have something, an animal will move in response to environment. A plant won't move, but it might turn to face the sun, right? A mushroom won't move, but it might put its hyphae, have them grow in a different direction if it's headed towards food, right? Or away from toxins. Okay, go back. Okay, try this one. Which of the following is not a living organism according to our list? Let's see what you think about this one.
Sorry, I was responding to chat stuff.
Okay, I'm just seeing things coming in. I'm not.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
Got it? Because I'm not there. Okay.
Yeah. That's why I was like, I'll take care of that.
So you have these living things listed. Is there one there that does not have everything on the list? You got to have everything on the list, not just 6 out of 7, not 5 out of 7, 7 out of 7 to be considered alive. Okay. Bacteria are alive, believe me. Bacteria are living cells. If they were not, you would not be able to kill them with an antibiotic, and you would have been in a lot more trouble. Viruses are the answer. Viruses, as you're about to see, are lacking in some of the things on that list. They're missing a couple of things. All these other things are alive, right? The bacteria that live on the surface of your skin and inside your mouth and all over the place, they are single-celled, right? They're different from our cells, but they're still cellular. Fish, definitely alive. Algae, we tested a bunch of algae in that tank. They're single-celled, but they still have all life characteristics. Koala bears obviously are alive. Viruses are the ones that are kind of on the edge of life, not really fully alive. Okay, so what is a virus? Drag got to the virus that looks like the COVID-19 virus. You should have seen enough of these in the news to be able, I just want to know what you know. Which one of these looks like this COVID-19 virus that's been attacking people all over the world? Okay, what do you think?
19. All right, guys, come on.
Yes, that's pretty good guesses, guys. That's really good. The actual answer is it's this one. This is the one that looks most like the COVID-19 viruses. All flu viruses are these sort of circular viruses with receptors all around them. There are some human viruses that look like the adenovirus here, but the COVID, all the flu viruses, actually the term coronavirus, corona means crown. And all the coronaviruses, the flu viruses, look like this. They look like kind of a ring with like a crown that a king might wear. See that? That's why it's called a coronavirus. So COVID-19, the specific flu virus that's been doing so much harm, looks like this. Okay, so let's keep going. What is a virus? All right, here's some info. So a virus, first of all, is incredibly small. It's way smaller than anything you could see on a microscope, even at the most powerful setting. A virus is basically a coat of protein, an envelope of protein, with genetic material inside. That's it. That's all a virus is, a protein package with some genetic material inside. When it says viral genome, in English, what that means is it's a piece of genetic material, either DNA or RNA. That's all there is in a virus. A virus cannot take in food, break it down, and make waste. A virus cannot grow larger or develop. A virus doesn't do any of the cell sort of metabolic things inside here that a cell would do, because a virus is not a cell. So that's one of the major reasons why we don't count it as living. Some more info. So no cell membrane here. This is a protein coat. There's no phospholipid layer here. No cellular structures. There's no nucleus, there's no ER, there's no mitochondria, nothing like that inside here. It does have a viral genome, right? So it does have some genetic material in there. Sometimes it's DNA, sometimes it's RNA. It does have that. But it can't build its own proteins. It can't break down food. It can't grow. So those are the things that it is missing. Okay, so now you tell me, I want to know what you know about this. Can a virus like this one reproduce? Yes or no? What do you think?
You guys can put it in the, Alex, put it into the.
It's in the paradigm. Say just yes.
The paradigm. Sorry, Alex.
Thank you for chatting. That was very, very sweet of you to do that. No problem.
I like that you're still involved, Alex. Thank you, buddy. Unless you're not in the paradigm because you can't get in.
Yeah, you can still join the Pear Deck even if we're in the middle of it. Please do that if you.
I'll you know what? I'll repost it again just in case.
The code is right up here in the corner.
Yeah, I put it in the chat as well.
Let's see what you said. You're right if you said yes. Correct. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Yes, if you said yes, you are right. The thing is, they can't reproduce without help. They have to invade a living cell and borrow cell machinery to do it. And this is called the lytic cell. So this is a picture, let's say this is a picture of a human cell, right? And maybe this is the virus, let's say this is the COVID-19 virus. So this cell is located in, let's say, the epithelial lining of your lungs. That's what the COVID virus attacks. It attacks those cells that are lining your lungs, the inside of your lungs. And the virus invades the cell and injects its DNA into the cell and forces the cell to make more viral particles, right? So then new viruses erupt out of the cell. The problem with that is the viruses erupting out of the cell are breaking the cell's membrane in order to do that. So they make holes in the membrane, and that kills the cell. So when the virus goes into a lytic cycle like this, when it orders a host cell to make more viruses, and then those viruses burst out to infect other cells, that kills a lot of cells. Now, in the case of COVID-19, what happens is that destroys the lining inside a person's lungs. And the danger there is that lining is the way that you get oxygen when you breathe in into your bloodstream through that lining. And if that lining is being destroyed by virus infection, that's why people die from this virus. Now, a lot of us, luckily, have, because of long periods of evolution towards coronaviruses on this planet, a lot of us have some natural immunity. Some of us are not going to experience the worst symptoms of this virus if we get it. But about 10% of us, and that's a pretty big percentage, are going to get symptoms. And some of those symptoms include that destruction of the inner lung lining. And that's why people suffocate to death from this. And you've heard stories about ventilators, right? People going into the hospital and they put a person on a ventilator. And even when you have a ventilator forcing oxygen in, if you have a surface area that's not allowing it to go through, 80% of people who are on ventilators still die. They never wake up. They slowly suffocate to death. This is why you guys are at home right now. This is why we're telling everybody not to go out in public without a mask on and to social distance, and that's why people are so afraid of this virus, because it's about the worst way there is to go. I have a sister-in-law who's a nurse, and she knows one of the worst ways a person can die is with anything going wrong with the lungs, because it's just a slow, horrible suffocation. So protect yourself, wear your mask, okay? All right, so that's how a virus works, and that's how any virus can work. It just depends on what part of the body it has. So a virus has DNA, and it can reproduce with help. Can it evolve as a group? What do you think?
Ooh.
Evolve?
It's answering.
Yes or no? Take a guess, and then we'll talk about it.
Ooh. I know the answer.
Ah, you guys are, that's good. That's good.
All right, good.
It doesn't matter if you get it right or wrong. It's just up for discussion. Just like to have you participate.
To know that there's respiration going on.
Uh-huh.
The other end of those people.
So yeah, very good. So the answer is yes, they do evolve as a group. When viruses go into cells, like I showed you that they do, what they force the cell to do is to make more of whatever they've got, the genetic material, right? So they force cells to replicate the DNA or the RNA that's in them. And when you replicate DNA or RNA, often there are natural errors that happen in the replication process. And those errors are basically, those are mutations. That causes a virus to change as a group. So the viruses that erupt out of a cell might be different from the original one that went into it. That makes it really tough for doctors to find vaccines against some viruses. Because a vaccine, let me just tell you what a vaccine is, because there were a lot of questions about that in the last class. A vaccine is when doctors isolate a virus, a viral particle, a protein with the DNA in it, and they carve a little piece of the particle out. So you no longer have a virulent or dangerous virus. You just have a molecular part of it. And you take that and you inject it into a person, and then that causes their immune cells to respond. The immune system responds, and it takes that bit of virus that's not going to make them sick, but that will stimulate their immune system to create a bunch of soldiers ahead of time to deal with that particular virus. So if you get vaccinated against a virus, like you get vaccinated these days, they're still doing diphtheria and measles and the viruses that are still out there, we're still fighting. You're getting a piece of the virus that causes your immune system to respond and create soldiers that are going to sit there and wait inside you. And then if the real whole virus comes along and infects you, you're already going to have defenses against it. So you won't even feel the symptoms because your soldiers are already, your immune system already said, oh, I recognize that. I can go feel that now right away, right? So that's how vaccines work, and that's why vaccines are so important. And they are important because you have viruses that can evolve, right? So when they change, then you need a new vaccine. So let me talk about different types of viruses. This is also really relevant to what's going on right now. The coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus, looks like this, right? We already talked about that. And inside this virus, this little string here is RNA. So their genetic material is made of RNA, not DNA. The smallpox virus over here, this picture, the inside of the protein here, this is DNA. So its genetic material is made of DNA. Now the reason why these are different, right? What makes the smallpox virus much easier to deal with? You can make one vaccine and you can annihilate it, right? And we did. We got rid of smallpox. None of you are really dealing with smallpox anymore because they found one vaccine that would kill it, right? Flu viruses, though, you may realize that you've got to go get a new one, don't you? The reason for that is because RNA viruses, and all flu viruses are RNA viruses, they mutate much faster than DNA viruses. So things like not just smallpox, but measles and diphtheria and tetanus, those are the things that are viruses that are DNA viruses. Those vaccines, they only had to really make them once. And then as long as you got them when you were a little child, you're covered. But flu viruses, there are thousands of different flu viruses. COVID-19 is just one more new one. And they mutate so fast that scientists are making new vaccines to cover the ones that emerge every year. So much harder to develop vaccines for flu viruses, for any flu viruses, COVID included, because they constantly change. RNA mutates much faster, and there's way more mistakes when RNA replicates than when DNA replicates. Okay, so now let's recoup. Which of the following are characteristics of viruses? Remember, not all of them are, but some of them are. Okay. Yeah, so evolves as a group. If your dot's there, that's very good. Contains DNA and RNA, that's also one right there. Yes. Able to reproduce? Yes. Nothing else here should have a dot on it. Definitely not made of cells. That's not right. Move away from there. Metabolizes food? Definitely not. It can't do that. Able to grow? Nope. Viruses cannot grow. They cannot develop. They're protein coats with genetic material in them. So able to reproduce, contains DNA, and evolves as a group. Those three. That's the reason why we do not consider viruses to be living, because they don't check all the boxes you need for life. Here, there we go. Okay, time for break, Mr. Bouchard?
Yep. Let's go ahead, guys. Stand up, move around. We're going to give you a 5-minute break, and we'll be back.
Oop. Okay. We're back. Hold on just a second. Here we go. Go. All right, let's go back to our beautiful pear deck, and the beautiful Mr. Bouchard is going to continue with you.
I was talking and didn't have my thing going. Oh boy. Okay, guys. One of the things we're going to talk about now is the cell theory. And the cell theory, and like all great discoveries in science, it wasn't done by just one person. It was a group. If I can't stress anything to you, is that some of the greatest, if not most important studies and findings in science are not done just by an individual, but by a bunch of people contributing to the greater good. So that's something that's huge if you think about it. So first guy, back in 1665, we got this guy Robert Hooke. He's got his compound microscope at the time, very, very antiquated compared to what we have today. And this thin piece of cork, which is a plant cell, dead. He looks at it, and he sees all these little tiny boxes, and he's like, wait a minute. This looks like what monks lived in, these things that we called cells. So he goes, aha, these are all cells. So he was the first guy to coin the word cells. And when I say the word coined, it means the first to use. So he came around and said cells. He named them and used the word cells to first say cells. This is 1665. Then, a couple years later, about 15, 20, maybe, 10, 9, I forget, I didn't remember the other. 1665. Whatever. Yep. Anton van LEEUWENHOEK. Try saying that 3 times fast. All right. He used a single lens microscope, and hygiene wasn't the best back then. We didn't have toothbrushes, we didn't have Colgate. So he scraped off his scrapings on his teeth like any scientist. He was wondering, like, what is in this? What can I see? So he scraped off his teeth, did a little scraping of it. He looked at some pond water as another example, and he saw these tiny microscopic organisms, single-celled, like amoebas and parameciums, and he's like, whoa! What is this? These wee beasties! And he called them wee beasties because he's the first guy to see these things. They look like little wee beasties, little monsters. They're molecules or microorganisms.
So rolling in his grave.
You never see this, and all of a sudden, what? There they are! Oh my God! We're gonna be attacked by aliens!
I'm sure he sounded just like that too.
Exactly. So he saw these things. So the first part of the cell theory came around. All living organisms are made of cells.
There's part 1. If you're writing this down in the cell theory section, number 1, there it is.
All living things are made of cells. Then about 200 years later, maybe 150 to 200, and my math is not as good. I like numbers. And Matthias Schleiden, he's looking at the plants, and he sees the plants under the microscope, and he sees all these tiny boxes in all of these different plants. So he goes, oh, all plants are made of cells.
Oh,
So he said, okay, if you are a plant, you are made of cells. Yeah. And his buddy, the next year, Schwan goes, hold on, let me look at animal tissues. And I look at all these animal tissues, and oh, they all have cells. So, oh, if you are an animal, you are made of cells. Voila! So, all animals are made of cells. And he was another co-founder of the cell theory. So, this what was born. Cells are the basic function unit of life.
Universe and everything.
Everything. Cells are the basic functioning. Cells build upon cells. Compare us to an amoeba. Amoebas are much smaller. Could you imagine an amoeba this big? That pseudopod would be scary. But they're single cell, but cells build upon cells to make bigger organisms. Then Rudolf Virchow is like, I must look at the onion root. I know there is something in the onion root.
Something going on in there.
Something. So he looks under his microscope. Look at
If he'd looked at sea urchin eggs, he would have seen the same thing. Or if he had looked in, where else would you see a lot of it? Oh, if he'd been able to look at human embryo tissue, which would have been a tough thing to do, he could have seen a lot of this as well. Cell division, right? Where's cell division going to happen? Cell division is going to happen in any part of your body that replaces itself a lot. So in your bone marrow, you'd see a lot of replacement because all your red blood cells are constantly dividing and making more. Your skin cells are constantly dividing because you're constantly losing layers of skin and more come up to replace it. So you'd find cell division there. In plants, you find them in the roots, at the tips of roots. They're growing out. There's lots of growth there. So there's where your cell division would be. So that would definitely be a question I would ask on the test. Is which one of these places would you find a lot of cell division? Right?
In onion root tip, he was able to see it. After a while, he'd see these cells start forming other cells, and so he goes, oh, okay, so cells came from pre-existing cells.
There it is.
So, third part of the cell theory was born. Voila! Cells come from other cells.
There we go.
So we have 3 points. We have 3 points to the cell theory. First one, all living things are made of cells. 1. 2, cells are the basic unit, structure, and function in an organism. And 3, cells come from the reproduction of existing cells, cell division.
Okay.
So go ahead, respond to me now. Respond. Think about it. I just said it. What are the 3 points? I guarantee you we're going to ask you on the test. So type them in your responses, my lovelies. Let's see those responses. Not yet, Miss Murdoch, sorry.
I got it. I'm waiting.
I'm waiting and holding and wishing and thinking. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, good, 11 and 19. Nice.
Look at that.
Oh, good. Nice.
Awesome. You guys,
Great.
gosh, you guys are hitting all the bases. Look at this.
This
Awesome.
fire.
You guys are fantastic.
DNA is passed. No.
Don't mix it up with characteristics of life, right? There you go. You got it. Right. We gave you 2 lists, didn't we? We gave you one with 7 things on it that define what's alive. This is a different list, though. This is the cell theory, which has 3 facts just about cells, right? That is awesome that you corrected yourself there. That was wonderful.
Nicely done, guys. Oh,
All you learn is
knew you were smart.
Fantastic. Okay.
Miss Murdoch was like, they're not smart. I was like, they're smart. They're not smart. All right. So our exceptions to the cell theory, mitochondria and chloroplasts can duplicate, which is actually very important. As you exercise, your mitochondria will duplicate and provide more because the mitochondria provide energy, just like in chloroplast. When the sun is shining and it's spring and summer, there's more chloroplast there to perform photosynthesis. So they can do those more. There's also DNA in the chloroplast and mitochondria, but we won't get into that. Viruses are not living, and the first cell came from non-living matter. So way back in prokaryotic times, when they made that first cell, it was from like
ago
on Earth. That's when they had to. It was a very volatile time. We'll talk about more of that later. We get to evolution. I love evolution. It's one of my favorite topics.
All right, here you go. Let's see what you remember about those scientists.
Which of the following scientists looked at cork and called the rooms he saw cells? I said he coined the word cells. Ooh. Ooh. Pressure. 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 All right, let's see what we got. Let me put it over to see the results. Hook! Yes!
Hook is the guy. Yep. Hook is the one. Hook looked at cork. Hook looked at cork and said, "Whoa, cells!" I'm stealing your style, okay? I'm stealing it. Right.
Cells?
Was the man. Hook looked at cork. Was the first to use the word cell. Okay.
Which of the following scientists looked at scrapings from his teeth and saw single-celled organisms? He called them wee beasties. Wee beasties. Oh, he's such a wee beastie.
Make sure you look at all the choices every time.
Look at the choices. Only 6. Come on, I know there's more than 6 of you.
Okay, just make a guess. Make a guess.
6. Never.
They are kind of going in order here. Remember.
12. 12. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right, let's see what we got here. There
you go. You got it. Leeuwenhoek. Okay. So Hook and Leeuwenhoek, they were in the same century. They were both in the 1600s. So they were the guys with long wigs and the really primitive microscopes, but they were the first to get that that first idea that all living things are made of cells. Schleiden and Schwann are kind of together too. You can group them together. They were in 1800s, I think.
Yes.
And they, right. Schwann did the animal cells and Schleiden the plant. Right. So that's how you kind of remember them. And then Virchow. Let's see who he was. You tell us.
Which of the following scientists looked at cells dividing and added to our knowledge that cells come from other cells? Who could this be? All right, let's see what we have and the results of the question.
Virchow, yes, that's him. Virchow is the guy. He's the one that looked at the onion root tip, the parts of the onion that really grows a lot, and saw that there's a lot of cell division there. And he said, so cells come from other cells.
Yes.
Virchow was the guy. Okay, last one.
Which of the following is not part of the cell theory? Think about it. It's a very tricky question. Which is not part of the cell theory?
You guys are fast on this. That's excellent.
Oh, fast ninjas. Let's see what we got. All cells make. Yes.
Very good. Maintaining homeostasis is a characteristic of life. It might belong in that list, but it doesn't belong in this one. So the 3 tenets of the cell theory: cells come from other cells, all living things are made of cells, and cells are the basic unit of life. Those three things. So B does not belong there. Yes, it's true. Cells maintain homeostasis, but that's not part of the cell theory. That's part of characteristics of life. That other list we talked about. Okay, that is the end of this. So now, Mr. Bouchard, tell them what they need to do next.
I will. What do we got behind door number 2, Julia? Well, ladies and gentlemen, what we got behind door number 2 is Ed puzzles. Yay! You got some Ed puzzles on your, you can work on your algae lab, your Ed puzzles. If you've already done the Ed puzzles, work on the algae labs. If you're ready for that to be turned in, start fine-tuning that. I will put you